It's good to be back with you for our third day of focusing on this barrier of busyness and distraction and a lack of priorities in our lives when it comes to our relationship with God. And again, these are based on what you have shared as biggest barriers, and I thank you so much. We're going to look at a passage in John chapter 15 today, verses 1 through 4. So I'm going to read it, and here we go. Verse 1. Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will even be more fruitful. You were already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I will also abide in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must abide in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you abide in me." Going back to our passage 2 days ago with Mary and Martha, see, Mary knew how to abide. But I wonder if she had to overcome an obstacle that we do, and that is this. What do we tangibly have to show for our time? See, if we turn our relationship with God, our following of Christ, into something where we feel the constant pressure of having to tangibly measure something, it's going to become burdensome. We're going to lose our joy. We're going to be placing a heavy yoke upon us, and it's going to be something where it becomes very anxious. A lot of times the way that we are transformed to become more like Christ, they come through things that cannot be tangibly measured. It's often by sitting at the feet of Jesus. I recently read an article by a woman named Susan Naharla, and it's entitled "This Sanctifying Grace of Inefficiency." That's right, you heard it right. The sanctifying grace of inefficiency. I want to quote part of it from you. I feel like it's a really good article. And here's what she says. "The structure that I had come to rely on started to unravel in a world where anything that could go wrong would go wrong. But the newfound disorder in my life gave me a practical lesson in a simple truth. I am not in control. Today, as millions across the world are locked down and shut in because of the coronavirus, many people face job losses and missed work opportunities. As our calendars present a series of canceled events, we have little choice but to acknowledge our entrenched inefficiency. The Western world runs on heightened productivity. Set patterns are followed. Our schedules are filled with appointments and priorities. Stores and restaurants are open for their normal hours. Meetings are not broken up by low internet bandwidth. Of course, we are grateful, and should be, for a system that thrives. But when our hands are tied because of a global pandemic, it's a relevant time to ask ourselves, am I normally so entrenched in efficiency that I don't desperately need God? Has our yearning for God been replaced by a temporary satisfaction fueled by how much we can accomplish in the shortest span of time? Has our drive to be efficient chipped away at our dependence on God? And I feel like this is one of the things that you and me, that we agree with, is a barrier, is we feel like we have to constantly be on the go, having tangibly to show for something. Jesus was a master at this, and here's what I mean. Jesus welcomed interruptions into his life. Now, he knew they were part of the Father's plan, but often God brings divine interruptions into our day on a regular basis that weren't on our calendar. And a lot of times it's these people or these things that come into our lives that are God's means of forming us to the image of Christ that wouldn't happen if we got point A to point B in the quickest amount of time. And so often we might think that this interruption that comes into our life, that we're serving them or we're serving that need. But I want you to consider that some of the interruptions that come into our lives are God's way of reminding us we are not in control. And it's a way to slow us down and to remind us of what Mary grasped. Sometimes the best thing we can do is sit at the feet of Jesus. There's so much more that we can talk about on this subject, and I look forward to future conversations with you. I would love to hear from you, because tomorrow we are going to transition into something else that you defined as a barrier, and that is the area of people-pleasing and battling against self-sufficiency.